Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the only podcast produced by three two-time winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. You tuned into the Check Engine podcast. We're hosted on Anchor.fm, and we are streamed worldwide on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Nick, Andrew, and Tristan are here, as we are each and every week, but this week we are joined by a special guest. Reason being, even though our name is Check Engine Podcast, we haven't really, in the 4 years that we've been a podcast, we haven't really dove into anything deeply mechanical on this show, I would say. But we thought it's about time we do that, but we're not ones to speak to that. So we brought in a guest, actually my cousin-in-law, Brad, who is a professional mechanic. And we're going to talk with him for the next little bit about just some of the craziest customer stories that he's seen in his time. So, Brad, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. So I appreciate you guys having me on. It's awesome. So yes. I'm in the automotive industry because I've never really been good at anything. So I had to pick something. So I've been doing it my whole life. It's been all different aspects from parts to aftermarket to dealerships to service manager to service writer to wannabe technician. So I got some good content for you guys, I hope.
Great. Yeah. I mean, like Nick mentioned, I probably know the least out of everybody in terms of working on actual cars. Like, I can do my own oil. I can do tires, like swap winter tires, stuff like that. I used to be able to do brakes. I can't really do brakes anymore because, electronic braking systems, but that's about it. So I'm definitely not the one to talk about this.
Right.
Yeah, I've had the occasional foray into the mechanical background. My dad and I, having done quite a bit of work, the biggest one probably the suspension rebuild on the Jeep, but so it's the extent of my experience.
Yeah, and on my end, karting, but it's super simple. Like there's no electronics, there's nothing too crazy about fixing a go-kart. So that's about, outside of that, and like the oil change, like Andrew said, that's about all I got. So it's good to have someone with your expertise, Brad, on with us tonight.
Yeah, so just what you guys are saying, like changing oil and stuff like that. Do you know there's an average car, there's anywhere from 30 to 50 computers in each car, processors in each car. High-end stuff, like your Land Rover stuff, it could be up to 100.
Sure, makes sense. I mean,
isn't that crazy?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, talking about all the computers in cars, of course, all the production delays now on cars, specifically because of all the chips in everything.
Right. Exactly. It's a huge thing in our industry. I'm not on the sales portion, but it's a big thing. It affects everybody.
That's something I would definitely be interested in starting at, actually. You said you're not in sales, but I'm just thinking from a, career perspective, what do you think of brands like Ford who are making the decision to build cars 90 to 95% of the way, then ship them to the end destination? Then when they finally get the chips in production or boards or whatever it is that's missing from those cars, have the dealer side mechanics essentially finish building the car. Do you think that would be a successful model? Do you think that could work?
I don't know what else you would do. Otherwise, there's going to be this huge backlog of vehicles sitting at a port and say in San Diego or wherever it might be. You're going to have all these cars sitting there and we're going to get all these chips. And all of a sudden, the market's going to be flooded and the bottom's going to fall out of it. And you know that the automotive manufacturers are not going to allow that to happen. So they have to come up with a way to keep the demand once the supply comes back, because eventually there's going to be all these vehicles that are sitting are going to be in production, are going to be for sale, I should say. And when that happens, if we get flooded with them, the price is going to plummet, and they won't allow that to happen. They will find a way to keep the supply trickling in. To keep the supply trickling in slow enough to keep the price up until this is over, they won't allow it to be on a J curve. They'll figure out a way to make that not happen.
That's interesting. I never thought about that part of it, actually. That, essentially, if a dealership has stock, or they can tell people who come in, we have these, we can't quite sell them yet. You can even go look at, your satellite lot or whatever. Here's your,
Right.
whatever it is, Ford F-150, but it doesn't quite have this yet. However, this could be yours. I mean, I don't know if they can sell them in that state or not, but that is definitely something you can show a customer, as opposed to just like, hey, we'll build an F-150 at some point. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So if they all stay, say, at a dock, and they're all sitting there, you can put money down on it. But if you have a vehicle on your lot, you can say, hey, this could be yours. Take it, like you said, take your money on it, take it down. Now the price is up high. This vehicle's paid for. We're just waiting for the chip. If you say, okay, all these cars are sitting offshore, and then we get them in, and all of a sudden we have all this influx of cars, you're going to crash the market, and they won't allow that to happen. I can guarantee it.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
It's a very fair point.
It's like the housing market, but they can control it because they're maneuverable.
Sorry, I think I had you cut out a little bit there. You're talking about the housing market, except essentially it's more controllable when it's the auto industry, right?
Right, because if we have a bunch of vehicles sitting at a port, we can move them all across the United States. When the housing market falls out, it's you're limited. You can't move it, right?
Mm-hmm, of course. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I never really thought about like the market side implications of actually having the vehicles, but I guess my thought was that, or something that was brought up in some publications that I'm reading, was that fundamentally there is a difference between standard service and installation, or essentially finishing car production. So that was something, there were people writing articles and like automotive news and stuff about how you would have to retrain a tech or the head of your service department to do like the finishing installs as opposed to repair. Does that make sense to you? Like in your experience?
Yeah. So a lot of times we have what's called a port installation. So when a vehicle comes in off the carrier, it goes to the port, and say you order an F-150 and you order it with a trailer hitch, and the trailer hitch doesn't come from the factory. The port will install it, and it's called a port installed accessory. So what they're talking about now is having a port installed microchip or whatever we're looking at, or whatever it might be, a prom or whatever. So when it comes in, it'll hit the port, and then it'll get installed. If it's not available at the port and it's an allocated vehicle to a dealership, it will come to the dealership and the tech will install it. And then that's just ran through the warranty like a normal warranty repair. That has been talked about. That makes
sense. And I guess, obviously it's hard to generalize. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to generalize something like this, but when we talk about, the parts that are missing right now from all these builds, generally there's some kind of daughter board for a subsystem, or for, in some cases it may be like a USB port, which would obviously be attached to its own board. What does that installation actually look like? What is in a situation where you're missing, let's do something generic, something like a seat controller, electric seat controller. Would that car be shipped with the seat unassembled, or would it be, from the factory as finished as it would, with literally just panel gaps, and then you're taking the actual interior apart to install the piece?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I have no idea because we haven't gotten there yet. It's coming though. Like if it's like you say, a seat product, most of the seat modules are under the cover, so that probably would be unassembled. But if it's like a body control module that's behind the kick panel, that probably would be assembled to just plug it in and away you go. So it's kind of hard to say. That's what we're facing right now in the industry.
So, I mean, the one thing that did catch my eye, like I mentioned on automotive news, was simply because they're so industry focused, was all the talk about staff retraining. So, but really kind of what I'm hearing for you is that it's possible that really it's going to be not something you necessarily plan for. I mean, you may know the parts that are missing down the line are going to be missing. You might know in theory how that's going to show up at your doorstep, but really the actual process and creating a logical workflow from something like a port delivery to final sale for something that's a little more of a core component, some sort of main daughter board, is something that dealers have to figure out for themselves.
Right. So exactly. So we got a TRX the other day in, which is a Ram TRX, the dealership that I work at, and the gentleman had ordered power running boards. It came in with the truck. Running boards were on it. There was no PROM in the PCM, no chip in the PCM for the running boards. So we set the truck out. He took it. The running boards don't work. He knows that. When we get the chip for the running boards, we will install it and reflash the PCM, or the BCM, I should say. Reflash the BCM so the running boards work. So he took delivery of the truck knowing the running boards don't work, paid for the accessory, but when we get it, then he has to come in. All we have to do is install it and flash the PCM or BCM. So,
gotcha.
So it's a pretty simple thing.
It'd probably be pretty similar to that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. They're going to deliver these vehicles as long as they are safe to drive. They're going to deliver them without the accessory or whatever that's not functional.
Interesting. Sort of off topic.
Otherwise, they're going to sit.
I mean, what do you think of the TRX?
Is in Lage?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, what I asked was, what do you think of the TRX? Like, I'm sure you've now encountered it. Is it as impressive a chunk of mechanical engineering as it appears to be, like from the distance on the road?
Oh, it's amazing. So take a Raptor and put 700 horsepower Hellcat in front of it, and it is everything that it's chalked up to be. It is amazing. It's just sexy. That's all it is. You have a Hellcat pickup truck. What more can you ask for? I mean, so
speaking of that, Brad, you drove a Hellcat today, didn't you? Didn't you just tell me that?
I did. A gentleman come in today who is a friend of the owner of my company that I work for, and he's got a 15 Hellcat. It's never seen snow. It's never seen any rain, anything. He's like, hey, it's going to snow. I need this inside. He's like, but I want you to do me a favor. He's like, hop in. I want you to go for a ride. I'm like, don't ask me twice. So I got it up on the highway, and we have a really short ramp, and I got it up on the highway, and it's awesome. It's amazing. I mean, I've driven a low 11-second drag car. I don't know that it's like quicker than that from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100, but it makes 100 times more power and is way more fun to drive. It was probably the coolest thing I've ever driven, no doubt.
With that Hellcat, I mean, kind of a hard question to ask. Is it the kind of power that sneaks up on you, or does it like slap you right in the face?
Oh, it just slaps. It slaps you in the stomach. It's the kind that slams you into the seat power. It's the American muscle that you want it to be. You know, I drove I don't know if we got it before, but I drove a guy that I used to work with. He had a 69 Camaro. And it ran 11.2. It was the best run I ever made at 119. So it was going 106 at the 8th mile, but 119 at the quarter. So it was all about 513 gears. It was all about the launch and the 8th mile speed, and the rest was just the guy used to say, well, you get out at the 8th mile and you eat a hamburger, then you go get back in the car. It was all about the launch and all that. The Hellcat didn't have that good of a launch, but I mean, it just was way more power. And I mean, it feels like a 200-mile-an-hour car instead of a 119-mile-an-hour car at
Crazy.
$7,000. Yeah, it was
Sure,
something
sure.
I'll never forget. We're
That's
talking
awesome.
a factory production
No,
car.
is it the Demon that has the special keys?
The Hellcat has a red key. Yeah, and the guy gave me the red key, and he goes, "This is the red key." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were
I know.
talking
I know.
about that last week,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Last week.
The demon has all the extra drag kit on it, but the Hellcat also has the red key. Yeah.
Right.
Red key.
So you use the red key, Brad,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He didn't bring the other one. Yeah.
Nice.
We're good. So yeah, little
Just
story about,
throw that other key away.
right. Little story about that car. I worked for Berkshire Automotive until Friday. So that car was owned by John Bergstrom, and this is one of his personal friends. So I got an email from Mr. Bergstrom, said, "Hey, take care of this guy, friend of mine." The whole story. He brings the car in and says, "You might recognize this car." I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, it's a Hellcat. Hopefully, I'll recognize it. He goes, "This was Mr. Bergstrom's personal car." When I pulled the VIN up, when I put the pod in it, sure enough, came up to Mr. Bergstrom's name. So it was his personal Hellcat, first one that Bergstrom ever sold.
Nice.
Little aside.
Well, I mean, yeah. Why own the dealership if you're not going to be first in line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rank comes with privileges.
long story. Yeah. Long story short, this is a friend of his. He's like, I want a Hellcat. And he's like, we can't get him. And he hounded him enough. He finally said, all right, I'll sell you mine if you'll leave me alone. So now he's bought a wide body Hellcat just recently. So
okay, all right.
Of course.
So maybe a little bit of an upgrade there to the
Of
wide body.
course.
Those look so sick. Those are great.
well, and he's also got a SRT Grand Cherokee, so Trackhawk. So he's got some cool stuff.
Sounds like he's got a lot of Mopar stuff. Does he have any kick-ass Subarus from your dealership or no?
Mr. B does, but the gentleman that I'm talking about only owns Mopars. Will only own Mopars.
Oh, okay. The other guy, the friend. Got it.
Yeah. So this is the friend's car that said, "Let's go for a ride. Come on, let's get on the highway." I was glad it was a really short on ramp.
Sure.
So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, Brad, is because I found this article from, it's called Drivepedia, and it basically just pulled in a whole bunch of Reddit stories from mechanics just about crazy things they've witnessed on the job.
Sure.
And I just thought, like, man, Brad's got to have a million of these too. So I'm going to start off. I'm just going to throw one of these out there, and we're going to see if you've got one similar to, or one that beats this in stupidity or craziness or whatever you want to call it. So here's the first story I found. So this mechanic says his favorite story is when this lady came in and asked, if we install her new tires, can we make sure we install the air nozzle at the bottom so it can be easier for her to put air in them when she needs to?
That's hilarious. I had a guy one time with a Buick LeSabre. We had some really cool wheels on it, and he wanted all of the center caps lined up. I'm like, that's great if you only drive in straight lines. Yeah, he's like,
that's tough. I mean,
The whole reason you've got a differential is they spin at different speeds, you guys. Come on, let's go.
Let's not let common sense get in the way. So yeah, I have a similar story.
Around here, never. We never let common sense get in the way here.
That's true. I will say it's not something most people would think about. I mean, obviously, if you get stopped by somebody, you're like, wait, hold on a second. Do you really think that's what's going to happen? Then you'd probably be like, oh, no, I'm an idiot. But I don't think most people would think about it.
Well, if you don't understand how a car works, you would have no idea.
Yeah, not unless they have to.
Right. Yeah. Essentially,
right?
which is physics in
So-
general.
So
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, this is the real reason why we wanted you on. Obviously, everything we talked about with the dealership inventories and the incomplete cars is hot topic and valuable, but we really want to get to the crazy stuff here. So, didn't
Hot
you
topic.
tell me?
Hot topic, valuable, and answers a lot of questions that we had when we discussed it
Yeah,
on the podcast, because
Yeah.
we
Exactly.
were clearly just wrong when we
Well,
discussed
we're wrong
it.
about
So
everything, but that's fine.
yeah, that's
it's
why I'm
the
glad.
charm.
I'm glad we can find that out.
Yeah.
Right,
when you guys are assuming,
but
I'm
we
right.
really
I
want to get
just-
to the crazy stuff. So,
Well, you're speaking with such confident authority. We just it's you're willing it into existence. Is what's happening. You will be
Well,
right.
I sit in these meetings and they tell me I could be a mushroom. You know, I mean, they keep me in the dark and fill me full of shit. I don't know. I'm just telling you what they tell me. That's all I
I
know.
love it.
I
So-
just relay what I'm told.
So, Brad, let's get to some of the other crazy stuff that you had brought up to me over the past, Christmases and birthdays and all the other
Yeah.
stuff. You were telling me about a rather we'll say hefty lady and an F-350.
Yeah, so we had a lady. I was working at the Ford dealership. She comes in and super nice lady, and she's like, "Hey, my steering wheel is not straight." And my mind goes to alignment. You know, it's the steering wheel's crooked. You know, the Ford emblem is not straight. So I get in the truck and I bring it in, and the steering wheel's crooked, like parallel with the steering column. I'm like, what in the world? So I'm like, ma'am, did you get in an accident or anything? She's like, no. I'm like, and it's modern era. It's not a steering column with a shaft to the rack. It's just a steering column bolted with a sensor. So I'm like, what in the? So I give it to the tech, and he's like, the steering column's bent in this thing. And I look up the Carfax, and it's got no Carfax history. So I look in the handle, where you would put, if you can envision this, put your right hand on the steering wheel, put your left hand on the grab handle, put your foot on the rocker panel, and hoist yourself into the truck. That handle is loose. And I'm like, mind you, I didn't see this person. It was a night drop. So I'm like, what is going on with this thing? So I bring it to the tech, and he's like, hey, the steering column's bent. This handle's falling off. So I call the lady. I'm like, ma'am, has your vehicle been in an accident? No. I'm like, steering column's bent. And we're talking a F-250. It's not a little vehicle. I'm like, and this handle's loose. She's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just come get it, and we'll figure out what's going on. She comes in, and she's the sweetest lady. But she's 5'5", one way, and 4'5", excuse me, down one way. I'm like, how do I tell this lady? Your
understand.
truck is taller than you are? And she's like, I'm like, ma'am, can you? I walk her out to her vehicle. I'm like, oh, here you go, ma'am. I'm like, you might get in the vehicle for me? She's like, sure. She grabs the handle and grabs the steering column, puts her foot on it, and hoists herself up. And I'm like, can I interest you in a set of running boards? Or, some powered steps? She literally
There you
She
go.
literally would put her right foot on the rocker, her left hand on the handle, and her right hand on the steering column, and hoist herself up, which I give her credit because that took a lot of strength. But she literally bent the steering column and pulled the bolts out of the A-pillar, getting herself in it. And she's like, oh, do you think that would help? I'm like, absolutely, it would help. And so she came back like a month later, and she's like, it is so much getting easier in my truck. She's like, a lady my height and my weight, oh my God, I wish I had these before. I'm like, oh my God, I dodged a bullet there.
I bet you did.
Hindsight being 2020 and all that.
Right.
Like,
of course.
yeah, how do you say,
Who could've seen this coming?
ma'am? How do you say, ma'am, you weigh way too much to do that? Nicely, So, Yeah,
to be
it was,
swinging off of a
it went
steering
well. It was a
column.
hard conversation to. I'm like, I spent like an hour trying to figure out like how do I approach this diplomatically, but get my point across.
So, I mean, did you fix the steering column?
Yeah, and we warranted it for her because I felt bad.
Oh no! Look at that! Look at that!
Hey,
That's
see,
nice.
see, good people.
There's good people
And
out
that's
there.
why
Not
your
all
vehicle
mechanics
costs
are
so
out to
much.
get you.
Yeah, and that's why your vehicle costs so much.
I love it.
So, yeah.
That's
So,
crazy, man.
Yeah.
I suppose you have to have a lot of those hard conversations with people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part about
Yeah, I mean,
our
sometimes.
job. Okay.
No, I was just saying, it's sometimes, I mean, it wouldn't just be people like me who know, it's like the doctor phenomenon, right? You know 5% and think that you can explain the other 95. That's probably something I'm guilty of. But also breaking hard news to people about the way they're using their car in ways that they shouldn't.
Well, Andrew, you and I, we see that all the time, just in the tech world.
Yeah,
you
right.
have to break it. Like, hey, you can't use the top of your laptop as a cutting board. That's not okay.
Oh.
And you just
Oh,
have
that's
to
bullshit.
do it without the implied you dumbass on the end. You know, it's got to do it in a diplomatic way, like you said, Brad.
That's exactly true. You know, the hardest part about my job is explaining to somebody that what they did caused a problem in their vehicle, or that they don't understand what's wrong with their vehicle. So, like, we have people come in all the time. And I had a lady one time come in and she's like, the red light on my dash is flashing. It was an elderly lady. She had an older Buick. And she's like, this light has been flashing. And it flashes all the time. It doesn't matter if I shut my car off or anything. I'm like, man, that's a security light that's just telling you that the security system is active and looking for a signal. And she's like, no, that's not true. She's like, you're lying to me. I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, my kids have talked to you, haven't they? And I'm like, ma'am, I don't know you. I don't know your kids. I don't know the situation, but we can try to figure it out. And she's like, my kids think I can't drive. They put a system on my car that they can watch me drive. They're trying to get my car taken away from me, and I want you to take it off right now. And I'm like, I can't do that. She's like, I know they do. She's like, they're trying to get my money. She's like, they're trying to get my money. They think I can't drive, so we're not. They're watching me, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. It was it's quite entertaining.
Yep, that's the.
I'm
It's
like,
the same as the classic. They're watching my computer. Who's they?
yeah, exactly.
Them. You know them.
My kids.
But
I'm
I
like,
always answer that
do you have
because we work in tech. I always answer that, no, it's not them, it's me.
Yeah, as the administrator, it's not them, it's me. I'm the them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. You know, this lady's got like a, I don't know, you know what it was, like a 99, 98 Buick LeSabre, and it's got the flashing light on the dash for the security system. She's like, they're watching me. They're recording my driving. They think I can't drive, and I'm like, I think you just proved it.
Okay, folks, if you're still hanging with us, we just battled through a whole bunch of technical difficulties, but we think we have it figured out, and we still have my cousin Brad on the line, who works at a car dealership and has been giving us some great insight and some crazy stories that he's experienced in his time. And before we turn the mics on, Brad, welcome back, or thanks for hanging in there with us. You're talking about a rather embarrassing conversation you had to have with a young lady.
Yeah. So probably the most embarrassing thing I ever had, I had a young lady come in, very nice girl, like first time really owning a nice vehicle, brought it in for some warranty work, and she's sitting there and she's like, I really don't know what's wrong. I just want you guys to look at it. You know, it's my first nice car. I want to make sure it's taken care of, you know, the whole bit. It's like, not a problem. We'll have the technician take it for a ride. You know, it's under warranty. Kia has a great warranty. You know, we go through the whole bit, and he takes it for a ride, and she's sitting in the waiting room, and He's like, yeah, there's definitely a clunk. And he comes to get me, and he's just laughing. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, lay it on me. And he's like, you got to see it. So I walk in the shop, and he's just laughing, and all the guys are laughing, and they're all huddled around. I'm like, what could this be? And so they come get me, and they're like, just open the trunk and move the, that like cover over the spare tire. I'm like, all right, because it doesn't have a spare tire. So I pick it up, and I guess you'd call it her boyfriend in there. So she'd go around the corner, and it would roll and hit the side. And
a little mechanical buddy.
The other way. Yeah, her battery operated boyfriend, and it would roll the other way and hit the side. And so I'm like, all right, put it back together, pull it outside, wash it, do what we got to do. And I'm like sitting in my office. I'm like, how do I approach this? Like, I need to be diplomatic about this, but I also
wait, to be clear, when he said little boyfriend, there was not an actual body.
No,
there's not a person.
One that takes, batteries. So I pull her in my office, and I'm like, so I just want to do this myself personally rather than the service advisor. It's a sensitive situation. I said, we found something in the spare tire well causing that noise when you would turn, and her face got 3 shades of red. She goes, can I have my keys? And I said, they're in it. And she goes, thank you. And turns around and left, and she never came back.
Did you go to a new dealership?
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I felt so bad. Like, how do you say that to somebody? Like, she's obviously trying to hide it, right? So
yeah, it's funny you should say that. It's funny you say that, because not with a vibrator necessarily, but I did kind of a similar thing with one of my old cars. I remember it was when I had the Elantra, and I took it in I got a hole in the radiator, and took it in for service. And then when I got it back, I realized that when I would turn hard to the right, it would make like a pinging noise. I was like, oh shit, that sounds like suspension. It was only when I really turned hard, only to the right. But the car was riding fine. Everything looked fine. You could see like the whole brace looked completely fine. So I was like, all right, what the hell's going on? Took it back into the place. It's like, hey, it just so happened to start after I had the radiator done. When I'm turning right really hard, I hear this pinging noise. Sounds like suspension problems. But it looks fine. So they take a look at it, and the guy calls me later in the day. He's like, can't find anything. Everything looks fine. But I was still hearing the noise. So I rode with him and showed him, like, hey, when I do this, makes that noise. He's like, I actually know what it is. And so I said, okay, great. Fantastic. Gets back to the shop, gets out of the car and goes under the passenger seat. And he goes up underneath the springs of the passenger seat and pulls out a Red Bull can that was caught there and swinging. So when he turned all the way right, it would hit one of the springs and go ting, 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 ting. But when you turned left, it was swinging freely and it didn't hit anything.
That's funny.
I was like, how did you know that? He's like, oh, I could feel it hitting my seat.
Okay. Literally,
wow.
Literally by the seat of his pants, mechanicking.
Yeah, right.
You know what though, Brett? I think you were asking yourself how you would approach that. I think if that's how you said it, I think that was perfect, because hey, it's kind of a sensitive situation. She immediately knew what it was.
Right.
She immediately remembered.
Looking.
Yeah. I didn't want to say,
where'd the damn thing go?
Yeah. Where she, my thought was maybe she put it there to hide it, like mom and dad didn't want to know about it, whatever it might be. She obviously knew she put it there, but didn't correlate that with the noise.
Or had it in a bag.
And it had to have been as soon as she heard that, that's when the noise started. I'm out of here.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah. I like that.
That was
that's
good
crazy. So we've heard about apparatuses in tire wells. We've heard about heftier folks and steering columns. Has there been any engine related follies that you've seen?
Yeah, so I got 2 good ones. I got one really quick one. When I was at the parts store years and years ago, I had a lady call up and she's like, how much oil does my car take? And I'm like, what kind of car is it? And I'll look it up for you. And she's rattled off, and I don't remember what it was, inconsequential this time. And she's like, well, I put 12 quarts of oil and I still can't see anything through that little hole. I'm like, don't drive your car. She's like, yeah, I've been looking through that hole and I can't see any oil. So that's one good one.
12 quarts of oil.
Looking
Yeah.
through the hole.
Right. So she's looking through the fill hole in the valve cover. A recent one though.
So
Okay, I was like,
I literally
what
didn't
hole?
I literally didn't understand what you were saying because it's something I would never consider.
Yeah.
So this is like, what is she talking about? Oh yeah, the fill hole.
Yeah.
Duh.
So she's
Like, is she
putting through the
looking
valve
down
cover.
like she looking down like the dipstick hole, or like where is she looking? Yeah.
So she was looking through the valve cover expecting to see oil.
Oh boy.
Yeah. We're not
Yikes.
filling a glass of water here.
Oh, man.
Groaning with oil.
Don't drive your car.
Yeah. And then I think the one you were referring to is we had somebody tow in a eco diesel in a Ram. It was a local diesel shop, a reputable shop. Like we put glow plugs in this. Tech took it for a drive. Everything was going good. Drove it about 2 miles, and the engine stopped. No idea why. Won't start. Doesn't do anything. Like obviously it ran. We did our job right. The owner's saying we did something wrong. We don't think we did. So I'm stuck between the owner and the repair shop, and we get it in. And I'm like, well, the motor's locked up, and I'm like, who's paying to tear it down? So the repair shop's like, we'll pay to tear it down. It's 10 hours to tear it down, figure out to the point of failure. So my tech's like, it'll roll a quarter of a rotation either way. He's like, there's something, it's got a bearing out or something. We'll look at it and figure it out and go from there. Because these have a warranty extension on them for being unreliable.
Oops.
And so he gets it apart, gets it out, gets it apart, and he pulls all the bearing caps off thinking it's got a bearing problem. All the bearings are perfect. Everything looks great. So he's like, well, I'll pull one of the heads off. Pulls the left head off. Everything's fine. No problems. Pulls the right head off, and there's a Torx bit, which was a socketed Torx bit, sitting on top of the cylinder, and the cylinder is beat to death. And the corresponding head and valves are beat to death. So I call this guy, and I'm like, hey, this thing needs an engine. Somebody dropped a Torx bit in the engine. I'm like, you guys said you were working on it. What'd you do? And I don't remember exactly if it was injectors or if it was glow plugs, but either way. He's like, what'd you say it was? And I said, a T40 Torx bit. He's like, I'll call you right back. So he calls me back about 10 minutes later, and he goes, Bob, whoever the tech is missing a T40 Torx bit. He's like, we'll be picking up the bill. He goes, how much is it? I'm like, I don't know. Let me do all the math and stuff. We had to order a reman engine. It was $18,600. So that Torx bit cost.
That's a $18,000 Torx bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Ouch.
Guys, he sent me a picture of the damage. I just sent it to you guys on the WhatsApp chat. So what a little T40 can do.
Let's hear. Whoa!
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me literally make the like hiss through your teeth face. Like,
the impressive thing is it's still pretty intact.
I was going to say the bit actually looks like you could use it mostly.
Yeah, the socket part is gone completely, but yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. I don't know what brand it was, but that should be an advertisement.
That's
Yeah, you should send it in. Here, put this in your next magazine ad.
Right? Yeah. This went
can
through
withstand the force of a eco diesel engine.
Yeah, whatever compression that is, it's probably a lot. 21.
Speaking of engines, well, my wife actually sent me something today that you're probably like the perfect guy to ask about, Brett. She sent me something from the local buy sell trade page on Facebook.
Yeah.
Guy, I don't know if it's a dealer. It must be like a smaller local dealer that has a Hellcat Durango, apparently.
Trackhawk?
I don't know. It's just Hellcat Durango. So
I'm thinking of a Jeep. Never mind.
Yeah. So yeah. But same, I think.
Same principle.
Anyways, still in the factory plastic wrap. The posting is 12 factory miles, 1 year only, limited production! Exclamation point. He wants $125,000 for it, and I guess people are lighting him up about it. But what do you think in terms of that? I mean, that would be like a markup, right? Because I think it's probably like 80, 90K.
So we got a 2022 Charger Hellcat in today, and it was 81. So it's a markup. Obviously, the Durango is going to be more, being all-wheel drive and that whole jazz. But yeah, it's definitely a markup, but it's supply and demand. Where do you get one right now?
Right.
So the story that I had about the Hellcat today that we got in, somebody took it for a ride. To do the PDI, you have to drive it. It has to have 6 miles on it. It has to be over 50 miles an hour, and it has to be up to operating temperature. So that's in the computer when you plug it into iAdvisor or into YTech through Chrysler. We have to do that. The guy's like, the roads are wet today. I don't want it. I'm like,
What?
and the sales guy's telling me that. He goes, no. He goes, it was driven on wet roads. I don't want it. He goes, I was taking this car home in an enclosed trailer. I don't want it. It's like, I won't take it.
What if you just washed it for him?
It's a Hellcat.
But the roads
owner.
were
Who
wet,
knows?
Nick.
Right.
The
They were
water
wet.
would be wet.
And there was salt on them, and there wasn't enough water to rinse the salt off. So he's like, I was bringing this car home, wherever home is, in an enclosed trailer. So it had never seen salt or rain, and you guys ruined that for me. So I don't want it. He's like, get me another one. It's like a year and a half to get another one. So
Oh man, what do you say?
I don't. I have no idea. That's why I don't.
Like,
I'm glad I don't sell cars.
Does he know about this procedure?
He knew when it came off the trailer. He was there last night,
Yeah.
and he knew how many miles were on it. He saw how many miles were on it today when he came to get it.
But did you tell him that you had to drive it though?
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
Like, hey, we have
like-
to do this per Chrysler.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't talk to him. The sales guy
Well,
did,
yeah.
so I'm hearing the secondhand. But he's like, but the damage is done. He's like, it's been wet and it's had salt on it, and he's like, I don't want it.
Where does he live that he's afraid of salt and rain? Is he from like
No, he's from
Arizona or
Wisconsin.
something?
But you
He's
can't
local.
say never seen salt or rain if it saw salt or rain. But
Right.
what if the truck drove? I mean, okay, so
Exactly, you're
what are we
exactly right.
talking about?
That's the point.
Was it
I'm
an
making.
enclosed car hauler?
No.
Of course it wasn't.
No.
And some of these cars that come in, when they are disgusting. Like, you wouldn't believe when a car comes off a hauler and it's been all the way across the country and they have an inch of mosquitoes on the front. I mean, they look
I
rough when they come
I
in.
envision that for a second, and then
There's a reason they
regretted
cover
it.
That many mosquitoes.
There's a reason they cover all the sheet metal on the car with plastic.
But also, like, there was just massive storms in the South. You know what I mean? Where they
Right.
make cars, where the car factories
Where
are.
they come from. Right.
I don't. It's just. It seems like a little bit ridiculous. It seems like there should be a limit on it. On never seen salt or rain before
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's a
So
pretentious owner.
so when you were first getting into this business, like, were you warned of this? Were you
No.
were you like, by the way, you're gonna
Karen-
see a whole bunch of shit?
Karen wasn't the thing then, but she is now.
Guy Karens too.
Yeah.
What are they? There's a word for that. Brads or
Yeah.
Is
Hey,
it?
whatever.
Was it Brad?
Jads or no? Sorry. It's
No,
not.
hey.
Don't be so
I
rude to our
resemble
guest,
that.
Tristan. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
I actually got to go on a PDI for a Veloster N, which was kind of fun because they wouldn't let me drive one at the dealership.
Yeah.
So the sales lady I know there got me to go on the PDI, and that was actually interesting because the guy had his route right.
Yeah.
He's like, "This is what we got to do. We got to do these 7 things. We got to get the car up to operating temperature. We got to do this check, this check, this check, and then we're back at the office." And he just took me on his little route. He had everything to go with him. But interestingly, at the time, he was telling me, because it was a Hyundai Genesis dealership, that one of the things they do or had to do for the first gen Genesis G70s, if they came in and the owners were complaining of a noise or shaking on braking, they as part of the test, what they do is get the car up to 50 and slam on the brakes. And so they had to come in at like 4 a.m. to do those PDI checks on those cars coming back in front of the dealership, because otherwise they couldn't do it anywhere else.
I've heard of stuff like that. They're trying to eliminate issues.
Uh-huh.
So you're talking about PDIs. When I was at the Kia dealer, when we got one of the first Stinger GT2s, the twin turbo,
Nice.
the one everybody wants. One of the techs was taking it on the PDI route, and we had like you said, a set route. We had to hit all these parameters. It had to be above 60 operating temperature. It had to be all these parameters that you had to meet, and it's right on the tablet when you're doing it. You have the dongle put in it, and it checks it off, and if you don't do it, then you get charged back for the PDI. But so he's doing this PDI route, and I get a call the next day from my rep, and he's like, "Hey, did you guys get a GT2 in yesterday?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, we PDI'd it, and he goes, "Does your tech know that records mile per hour while you're driving?" I'm like,
Oh.
I'm like, "You're asking me, so I guarantee you he doesn't." He goes, "Well, he was going 117." He's like, "I'm gonna let this one go, but let everybody know." So
I know the PDI was 60, so we went 60.
yeah, well, we almost doubled that.
Well, it's capable of it, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can do it.
I think that's probably the Stinger is probably one of the most underappreciated cool cars right now.
Well, that's interesting.
For what you pay for them, they're awesome. I mean, the Kia hired BMW and Volkswagen's engineers to build that. It's got Brembo brakes, twin turbo. It's like, I forget the exact horsepower, 400 and 395 or something like that.
Yeah, I think the new ones are like, that.
Yeah.
Something.
That is a really fun car to drive for a reasonable price.
It seems like that's a common theme we hear about Hyundais and Kias, and we say that on this show all the time, where it's like, man, for the money, you get so much when you get a Hyundai or a Kia or anything
Right.
from that ownership conglomerate. They're just crazy good cars right now.
Well, look at the Telluride. I mean, the Telluride came out, and the Telluride is, I mean, 2 years ago was under 60 grand all in, highest model you could get. We just got a new Jeep Wagoneer in, no, Wagoneer, not a Grand Wagoneer, was
Sure.
92. We had a Grand Wagoneer, was 113. And that's
Yeah.
in the same class as a Telluride, like the Wagoneer is. Like,
We were looking at that the other day. I couldn't believe the
Yeah,
price.
it's beautiful.
Literally mind-boggling.
It's beautiful, but like, it's not a house. I don't live in it. I mean,
You probably could.
right. You could.
Push
but, I
comes
mean,
to shove.
not real spacious, but
So let me ask you this, Brad. You're talking about, we got in a Stinger GT2.
right.
And the way you said it was almost like this was an event. Like, so how does that work? Like when you've got like sports cars or limited supply cars, does the dealer have to like apply for it? And there's like a certain process to determine if you get one or not, or how many you get, or like, how does that work with these more special edition or limited edition type cars?
So I don't do the ordering or anything like that, but I hear about it. So there's
Right.
so many allocated, and you get the Hellcat. Like we just got a TRX in Ram that was ordered for a guy, and we're allocated 3 in 2021. This is our third one, so it's a limited production, obviously. So it's pre-ordered. Nobody's putting one on their lot. So as you order it and it comes in, that's your allocation. So the more especially with the Telluride, that was a really limited production, or not, I shouldn't say limited, but really restricted production. So as the more you sold, the more you got allocated. So if you sold a bunch of them and took down payments on them, so say you took down payments on 10, that would open up 5 more for down payments. So you were incentivized to sell them, and the more you sold, the more you got. The more you sold, people talked about it, the more people put money down. It's just kind of like a cycle. But like the Hellcat, that's just, you get what you get. You get 3 and that's it, or whatever it might be. But when you order one, you're allocated one, and when you're allocated one, each dealership gets a share. And the more you sell, usually the more you get.
So if you get 3 Hellcats and Tristan, Andrew, and I walk in the first day of that allocation and order them, like that's it. If someone else comes in, you're like, hey, you got to wait till next year. Tough.
Well, once you sell your 3, and then your allocation is done, once everybody allocates theirs, then you get another one.
Oh, okay.
So everybody gets an allotment. When your allotment's done, then they start over, and then it's as sold. Whoever sells more gets more.
It's interesting. I remember going into the local Dodge. What was that, Wild?
I think
Yeah,
so.
probably.
Yep, over in Waukesha.
This would have been, before any sort of automotive shortage. And I feel like I saw, almost like 4 or 5 different Hellcats between Challenger, Chargers was all they had at the time.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, what is going on here?
You used to be able to put them on your lot. I mean, obviously those days are long gone right now, but
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see like dealerships with less real estate or just less footprints because of this in the future? Like it's just going to be maybe a showroom, a really small lot, and maybe expanded service? Because if if everything is going to be pre-order or certain allocation, you don't need the space to put, that many cars in the lot.
It's like incredibly forward thinking. What my company is going to right now is the Carvana of the world. So we want to be able to sell online 100%, finance the whole works, 100% online. So we have brick and mortar stores and we have inventory, but that inventory is also available online. And you can buy it. You could buy a car from your house in Florida today, have it shipped to your house, and never step foot in our dealership. And it takes 9 minutes. I've never done it, but that's what they're saying. So the whole premise of it is, in 2018 we went to what they call one pricing, or like set pricing. So there's no negotiation. So how a car works is when you go to a dealership and you have a car, and Bob has a car for 20,000 and Jim has a car for 19,000. So their point is they're trying to sell that car for 17,000, right? So they're going to price it up high, negotiate down, and so that's the whole game. It was for years, well, I'll give you this and that, and then give me an extra 1,000 for my trade in, blah, blah, blah. Those days are pretty much gone. What we do now is they call it to market, right? So we used to price cars at 110% to market. So saying we had a $100,000 car, we'd put it at 110%, but we really wanted to sell it for 95. So now what we do as a company, we sell it for 95% to market. We put that price on it, and that's the price. Doesn't change, doesn't falter. Being when somebody goes to look at a car online and there's 50 pages, so you type in, I want a 2015 Chevy Silverado 1500 with a 5.3, right?
Mhm.
So when you start looking at those, if we're priced at 110% to market, we're on the 15th page. We're not getting any views. If we price it at what we should sell it at and we stay firm on our price, we're on the first page. We're getting the people in the door. We're selling the vehicles. Everybody's getting a fair price. It shouldn't be Steve is a salesman, so Steve gets a good deal, but Jim isn't, so Jim pays 110%. We give everybody the price they should pay up front, and that's the way it should work. Everybody gets a good deal. We sell more cars. We make less money per car, but we sell more cars, and everybody gets a good value. And our online presence is top 10%. 90% of people that buy a car already know what car they want before they ever step foot in a dealership.
That was a change that you and I had talked about, Andrew. It's like, occasionally you'll go test drive something, but like a lot of us have already made up our mind before we even go to the dealer. Like, I want this one, based on online reviews and whatever else. It's like the test drive is more of a seal of approval than like any kind of deep research for some things. Some things haven't, there's not that much out there about them, or like I'll stick with the seal of approval. Like, you go test driving a car,
You're validating your opinion.
Yeah, if you're test driving it in order to buy it, not just test driving it because you're curious about it, but if you're in the market to buy it, exactly, and so have I. But if you're test driving it to thinking you're going to buy it, it's more of just like a seal of approval, like, yep, I was right, I want to buy this. Right. Or, nope, I was wrong, that was a bad idea.
I'm just so, being suspiciously minded as I am, I'm so mistrustful of that pricing model, though, simply because it always comes down to, oh, great, the 95% of your, or the actual value of the car, quote unquote. But then where are you getting that pricing?
So how they figure it is what we pay for the car, plus what we have in reconditioning, plus a set markup. And what do you guys think the markup would be on a used truck? Just
on a used truck right now?
Today?
A lot. I think the markup would be a lot because the market's so aggressive.
But we're paying more for vehicles.
That's also true.
I mean, just throw a number out there.
If you want to, I'll in today's market, I'm going to say, I don't know, 30% markup.
I was going to say close to 20.
So it's not a percentage; it's a dollar amount. So say we buy that 15 Chevy Silverado from the auction, and it needs brakes, it needs tires, alignment, and we always change fluids, filters, wipers, stuff like that. the basics and alignment if it needs it, whatever, So the average amount that we make on a vehicle is less than $1,000. People think it's like crazy, like we make a ton of money.
Damn.
It's less than $1,000. Where the profit comes in is selling the warranty and selling the insurance and the tire and wheel protection and the key fob replacement and the oil maintenance packages. That's where you make more money. So what they call it velocity that we're doing now is bring the vehicle in, sell a lot of vehicles, have a lot of velocity, don't make a bunch of money on the vehicle, but you sell the insurance and all in the end game. For your average consumer, like somebody like me that doesn't work on their own cars, you're better off if you buy the insurance, if you buy the gap coverage, if you buy the maintenance plan, and you can buy a $60 full synthetic oil change or $70 full synthetic oil change for $40. Your money at. So it does in the long run come out to be better for people, but people don't understand that,
Well, I think it's that old joke from I was rewatching old Simpsons episodes. Never buy the extended warranty, right?
Right. Yeah. That was before cars had 100 computers in them.
That's true.
When it had a carburetor, you could bring it to John down the road and he'd fix it up for you for $100. It's not that way anymore. If you plan on keeping a vehicle longer than you will pay for it or longer than it'll be in warranty, an extended warranty is a good thing. Just make sure you're buying the right one. You're not buying the one off of
the one where they're calling you on the phone.
Yeah, your extended warranty is going to expire.
I'm coming to ask you about your car's extended warranty.
Yeah,
is that coming from your dealership? Is that you, Brad?
No. It's me, Brad.
Exactly. Are you sitting in that call center?
People come in all the time and they'll have a piece of paper and it'll have like the whatever manufacturer's insignia on it, and you'll say immediate attention needed. You guys sent me this. I'm like, no, look at where it's come from. No, it came from some country you've never heard of.
Yeah, scam artists. Like it's not that hard to go grab a PNG file of a car logo off of Google.
Yeah, exactly.
And drop it in the header of a piece of paper.
But if 1% of people do it, and you send out a million of them,
that's a big chunk of change, man.
Speaking of that, leads me into a story. One of the weirdest situations I've ever had. I had a guest come in when I was at the Subaru dealership, and he bought a used Subaru, really nice car, and they had number 3 cylinder bearing issues. So he had it for like 6 months, and the bearing went out. And he brought it in, and I said, hey, this thing needs an engine, blah, blah, blah. He goes, I bought this warranty. So I went round and round with this warranty for like 6 weeks. We got it all covered. It was covered 100%. He had to pay like $100 deductible. The guy comes to me and he goes, I don't trust this warranty company. I'm like, well, they approved everything and they're paying me. So if they approved it and you take your car, they're paying me. You don't owe me anything. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, tell you what, I went to my general manager. I'm like, hey, this guy's really on the fence. I don't know what to do for him. He goes, tell you what, tell him we'll take care of his deductible because we wanted the job. It was a really good job. And so I tell him that, and he goes, I'm going to cancel the warranty and and scrap the car.
What?
Like, you what? So he calls this guy, this scrapper guy, who happens to be somebody that I know. The guy comes to the dealership to pick up the car, and he goes, why is this guy scrapping this car? And I told him the story. He calls the guy, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, I don't trust this warranty. And he's like, buddy, your bill is paid. What are you doing? He goes, I tell you what, he goes, get it fixed, and I'll give you $5,000 for it. And it was probably half what the car was worth. He's like, no, I'm going to scrap it. He ended up scrapping the car and canceled the warranty. The weirdest situation I think I've ever seen. I'm like, dude, we're paying your deductible. You just paid $5,000 for this car, and you bought the warranty. It's paying for itself.
If I'm tracking that, you in the extreme case where the warranty didn't actually come through,
we had the liability.
Exactly, the dealership would have had the liability, not him.
Once I get an approval, that's between me and the warranty company. It has nothing to do with him.
Exactly.
So.
What was going on there?
Liability. I have no idea. There had to have been something more to that story that I don't know, but I never got it.
Those are always the best, where it's like you're in the situation and it doesn't make sense and couldn't possibly make sense to you, there's got to be something you're missing.
Yeah.
I ran into it all the time when I was fixing phones and computers. It's like, hey, I can fix this for $100, and it's like a year-old phone. Like, I'll buy a new one for full price. It's like, I can just fix it. No. It's like, oh, okay, like same thing. Like, where do people get this stuff in their head? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't. That was bizarre.
That is really weird.
That's crazy.
You just want to ask more questions, but I mean, no one has the answers for that.
Yeah, so
someone does.
Right, yeah, someone does.
Yeah, maybe his wife didn't know he bought that warranty or something. Who knows?
But still, even then, like,
sorry, my dear wife, I've saved us a ton of money. Be mad at me. Like,
well, I mean, I had our general manager, I had our district manager call him. Like, I told this guy, I'm like, you're making a huge mistake. I'm like, sell me the car and I'll fix it and buy,
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't want anything to do with this thing.
Oh, interesting.
There were drugs in the door panels.
Oh, yeah, wow. There's a story about that too.
Well go on. Please. On then.
So the last dealership.
Real quick, Brad, before for listeners, all of this stuff is coming in from, all things considered, a relatively small community.
That's true. That's true.
This is like Green Bay area, Wisconsin. This isn't like he's living in New York City or something where where the chances of this stuff the percentage versus the population is just crazy. But go ahead.
I couldn't imagine what would happen in a big city. That's got to be awesome.
But anyway, awesome. I'm sorry. Continue.
So, what was I going to say? What were we talking about?
Drugs in the door
panel. Talking about door panels.
I was looking at never mind. That's not next on my list. So when I was at the dealership prior to this one, the one that I'm actually going back to on Monday, they had what they call the buy here, pay here situation. So essentially it was for auto credit people that had no credit. We would finance the car internally, and then you would pay like a weekly or a monthly payment. And every car came with a GPS on it, and people knew that. So if you didn't make your payment, which most of them didn't, we would go repo the car. So most of our clientele was from south of Green Bay, Milwaukee area. So we would sell these cars, and they would have to make, it would be like either, depending upon the situation, like $50 a week or $100 a week or $200 a month, depending upon how bad the person's credit was. And they would have to make those payments on time. If you missed one, you would get a fee, and it's just like a credit card or whatever, you get a fee. But after X amount of time, we would repo the car, and everyone had a GPS tracker in it, so we would know where to go get it, and we would go pick these cars up. Well, a lot of times people would, all their personal stuff would be in it. We would pay somebody to go pick it up and haul it back in the middle of the night. And I had a lady one time. Now, mind you, this is a Ford, Lincoln, Kia dealership, and it's all one really big sales floor, right? Like, so you have Lincoln guests, and the Kias and stuff's kind of off, but all the, the Ford stuff is on one side. But we have a big place, and there's a lot of people, and you have people everywhere looking at vehicles, and we have this lady that walks in and goes, "I need my car back." Okay. And like, well, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. I go through the whole spiel. And she's like, "Yeah, you guys stole my car." So
can't steal what we own.
Okay, so the cashier instantly calls the buy here, pay here manager over here and, "Hey, what's going on?" Whole spiel. "You guys stole my car. I need my car back." "Well, you didn't make your payments, blah, blah, blah." The whole, the song and dance. "Well, you guys stole my car, and I got $20,000 worth of weed in it, and I need it." Well, that car's our property, the whole thing. Cops are instantly called. And this lady is tearing up the sales floor, throwing stuff, throwing chairs, smashing new cars. Like it was, and we have Lincoln clientele, which is, high-end clientele in this dealership, and she is throwing stuff and throwing out words and swinging and throwing punches. It was pretty cool.
Why would she just said it just like that?
That's awesome.
She's not helping her case.
No, but she
Oh.
thought she was going to just get to her car and get. Obviously, she must have been dealing drugs and owed somebody money for that because she said it
I
multiple
mean, if she had
times.
20 grand worth of weed in the car, her car payment
She
shouldn't
said
have
it
been that big a
multiple
deal.
times. He said,
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yeah, so she's screaming this. You have my drugs. Those are my drugs. That's my weed. That's my. And just making a scene. So now that's a separate building, and they're not in the showroom anymore.
Separate building.
Man, I would not want to be the guy that goes and repos cars for the dealership. I don't
It's,
know how much you could pay me to do that.
Yeah, I don't really know.
That was a good. They had a TLC show about that. So it's pretty good.
We
I
pay
knew someone who
just
did it.
like Bob's Towing to go do it or whoever it is. I don't know. I'm sure there's a repo company that they pay to do it, but they used to not put trackers in these things, and we'd find these cars all over the country. They'd get reported to us, and it's crazy.
Jeez, does anyone ever try to take the trackers off?
I don't know that they know that they're how to get them off or anything. I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't heard of it. But I'm
I
sure it
certainly
has.
wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty well hidden.
Man, that's
It's kind of
insane.
funny. Well, and the whole point of this thing is to get people that don't have credit, the divorce or whatever, to gain your credit back. But there's people that take advantage of it. And those are the funny stories.
Man, our jobs just seem so tame compared to what he sees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
90% of the people are great, but it's the 10% that are awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's a really funny
That's
way
the
to
word
put
we're
it.
using.
Yeah,
Great
That's really
and awesome.
funny.
it's like terrible at the time, but after I laugh about it.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to rip on some more people for like their sense of entitlement and their Karen-ness. Like, 'cause I just found this one on this Reddit feed. So this guy owns a 911 Turbo and a Ferrari, right? And the story is the customer says that at 3,000 RPM, his 911 Turbo that he just bought sounds completely different than his Ferrari sounds at 3,000 RPM. So clearly there's something wrong with the 911 Turbo.
My 96 Mercury Sable probably sounds a lot different than that either of those two, too.
It could. It might.
So there's probably something wrong with the Mercury, Brad.
No, it's prime.
That's probably.
So I mean,
Yeah. What's your latest Karen experience? Male or female? We're not a gendered show.
Yeah, well, it was Karen. So I had a lady. It was actually my boss. One of the writers was off on Friday, and she called like 100 times. My car won't start. My car won't start. My car won't start. I'm at the casino playing bingo. My car won't start. And my service manager's like, "Hey, get it towed in. We'll look at it. Blah blah blah. The whole spiel. Like, get it towed in. Well, I'm stuck at bingo. I'm like, get your vehicle towed in. We'll get you a loaner. We'll do whatever we have to do." And she gets it towed in, and it comes in Friday. And he's like, gets her loaner vehicle, and she's calling like an hour later. What's wrong with my car? Told you we weren't going to get to till Monday. I forgot that at the beginning. We're booked for like a week. So he's like, we won't get to it till Monday, but here's a loaner vehicle. Like, take your loaner, do what you got to do. And she's calling like every hour. What's wrong with my car? What's wrong with my car? So I get to it Friday, like late Friday. Starts right up. Runs great. She's like,
Ma'am, apparently nothing.
it doesn't start. And that's the hardest part of my job, is to tell people there's nothing wrong with their car when they think there is.
Entirely understood.
They have it in their head something's wrong, and you're not going to tell them any different. That's why a lot of people lie. I would rather not do that, because that always comes back to bite you.
so why couldn't she get it to start, do you think?
Well, the only thing that I can think is the steering column was locked, and she couldn't get it to turn over. So I don't know.
Okay.
So we kept it until today, actually. She came and picked it up today, and she's going round and round and round. What if I'm at bingo and my car dies? I'm like, call an Uber. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, she calls today, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, hey, we have nothing wrong with your car. We've put 50 miles on it. We've driven it. We've done everything. Checked all the systems. No DTCs, none of this. And she goes, if I got to come down there and give somebody a drive in the ass, I will. This lady just got done telling me she's 84 years old.
A drive in the ass?
Yeah, a drive in the ass. She's gonna come down there and give somebody a drive in the ass.
I'm gonna
I
say
think we
that.
found our
Car
episode
fixed.
title, Tristan.
Yeah, driving the ass. I'm gonna start saying that. I don't know what it means, but I think I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find the
So
meaning.
she comes.
There's
to
a
get
meaning
her-
somewhere.
She comes to get her car, and I'm like, I walk out there with her. I'm like, I know you really thought something was wrong with it. We couldn't find anything wrong with it. Started up, it runs great. And she goes, well, what'd you do? How'd you get it to start? I'm like, well, I just put the key in it and turned it. And she goes, well, I don't understand. I'm like, well, what do you mean, ma'am? And she's like,
I don't understand.
she goes, don't I have an automatic start? I'm like, well, you still have to start the car. She goes, well, I started it with the automatic start. When I got it in it would shut off. When you hit the brake, the car shuts off.
Yeah. Yep.
Unless
The
you put
auto
key
start
in it.
feature.
So I felt really bad for this lady. I'm like, ma'am, you shouldn't be driving. You've
That's
owned this
about on
car
par.
But
you
in
owned this
fairness,
car for 10 years. And if you forgot that, you really shouldn't.
That's
like,
different. I was going to say that's about on par with people who would come to me for their electronic devices that didn't know they needed to be charged.
Right.
I got this 2 days ago and now it won't turn on, and you plug it in and it works. It's like, oh, you have to plug it in. But I guess not a little bit different if she'd had the car for a while and then has suddenly forgotten
it's
about that.
different.
That might be
Right.
a different story there.
Yeah. I had a lady one time with a brand new Lincoln that brought it in at like 30,000 miles, the engine locked up. And she's like, well, my car just quit. I'm like, well, we don't have any record of you ever had any oil change. She's like, well, you guys have done all the maintenance. I'm like, well, we've never done any of the maintenance. And she's like, well, I didn't know I needed any. I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't. And she's like, well, you guys never told me.
You've got a good story about that, Andrew, don't you?
She's like, you never told me. I never got any call or anything saying my car was due for an oil change, so I never changed it.
I
I'm like,
do actually.
It was an older lady. I'm like, probably in her 70s. I'm like, ma'am, all the other cars that you owned in your life, have they ever told you that they need to do oil change? Well, no, but this one's really smart.
I mean, well, surely if it was a modern Lincoln, surely it had a service interval.
Oh, exactly.
thing.
And it went off, and she never paid attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, because those things are really annoying. Once
Well,
you
she
get
was expecting a call from the dealership.
Oh no!
She's like, you guys always call me and tell me. I'm like, yeah, we don't do that.
No.
Always might be
now they do.
the case.
Now the car will alert the dealership to call you, but
Oh,
Hmm?
sure.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, come on, though. There has to be a limit on. There has to be a bottom limit on the expectation of notification, right? If the car, and surely it would have like probably the on the screen. It's a Lincoln, so it probably
Right.
has like the fully digital speedo.
for sure.
It's definitely going to be on there.
Right.
And on cars with the full digital, it doesn't go away.
She
It
shouldn't
just
be
says like
driving.
service needed.
Let alone looking at that,
Exactly. Oh, come on.
Exactly right.
There's this one on the Reddit feed. I was actually going to read this one next, but you beat me to the story. It says, lady calls me saying her almost 2-year-old car won't start, doesn't crank even though the battery's fully charged. Pull the dipstick, no oil. I tell her, she gets angry and replies, what? There was oil in it when I bought it.
Sure.
There was.
Sure enough.
There was.
Was, keyword there.
If you let oil be long enough, it is now a consumable. So
Yeah, no, it's true.
So mail Karens. I had a guy had a Subaru Forester, really cool guy, like just out there, like loved life, typical Subaru guy,
Exactly.
brought it-
There, loving life.
Yeah, that sounds like.
That's
Did
me.
it look like Tristan? Was he wearing a North Face shirt? Was there a bunch of
Tristan's
state
feeling
park
proud.
stickers on the Forester?
Actually, he sold canoes and kayaks and
Of course he
outdoor
did.
equipment. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, exactly.
There was a rack on top where he could carry them, correct?
Did I say
Stereotype.
typical Subaru guy or not?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
all just redundant
Checked
at
out.
this point.
yeah, great guy. Like lived in a national park, I think. Like I love the guy. He was awesome. So he comes in. He's like, "Hey, my car's making a humming noise, and rear wheel bearings on those Foresters are pretty common." So I brought it in and diagnosed it, and needed both rear wheel bearings. And I left him a voicemail, and I said, "Hey, your car needs rear wheel bearings. It's $825 total out the door, tax included. Blah blah blah." He calls me back 5 minutes later. "Hey, yeah, do it, man. Yeah, I can't wait. Got to get my car back. I'm going to Michigan this weekend. Whatever it was."
Uh-oh.
So
Sleeping Bear dudes,
yeah, exactly.
Up in the
So
Porkies.
Tristan, was this you? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
We get it back.
No,
I could've
not
been.
an Outback. So no.
he's got an Outback, not a Forester.
Oh God, you got the big one. So we get it all done. Comes to pick it up, and he's like, "Whoa, dude!" I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "You told me it was 25." I'm like, "Sure didn't." And he's like,
Sure didn't.
So he's like, "Oh yeah, I even got the voicemail right here," and he's got a file, like an MP3 file or whatever, and it says, "Hey, this Brad from whatever. We got your car figured out. It needs 2 wheel bearings. It's gonna be boop $25." So I'm like, "Where's the original voicemail?" He goes, "Well, this is it." I'm like, "That's a file." So we had to go back through. I mean, we charged him the $25, and then went back through the phone logs because our incoming and outgoing phones recorded. And then I don't know whatever happened to it after that, but yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be $25." Like it was like a clear
he-
break. He
he
edited the
messed with
file.
the-
Yeah.
Wow. I thought you were cool, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, I
Yeah.
thought we were exactly. I just had a transmission put in his car and had like 99,000 miles on it, and Subaru has a CVT warranty to 100, and I had a transmission put in it for him, and I like Subaru does a quote unquote goodwill, and they're like, "Is the guy a good guest?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he always brings it here." So they didn't even charge him a deductible or anything; they just did it, and it was like 11,000 or I don't know, $10,000, whatever it was. And
Is
they
that is
paid.
that is that
Subaru
current?
paid for it.
Asking for a friend.
Is this the Subaru goodwill policy?
The CVT warranty.
Yeah,
Or is that
well,
just the old ones?
depends upon what it is, but yeah, they had a CVT extension. One thing I'll tell you about Subaru working there is they care about their owners more than any dealership I've ever worked at. So they have a 10-year, 100,000-mile. You can goodwill anything with the DPMS approval, obviously. So if you've serviced your vehicle at Subaru and you've had the work done and done the maintenance, they will goodwill anything within reason with a small deductible. They're awesome to deal with. They care about their
Interesting.
people. They've built a culture and they stand behind their culture. And I would have no issues buying a Subaru ever.
Love that.
There's
That's
a hell of a
great.
plug.
It's great to hear. I've owned 3.
Yeah, Tristan's glowing. He's
without
glowing.
knowing that, but I'm glad I know that now.
Yeah, well, a guy that I used to work with bought one. He's like, why wouldn't I? He's like, if so, he had to she's like, well, say a wheel bearing goes out at 80,000 miles, and he's like, well, can I goodwill this? And he's all you do is call Subaru of America, and they're like, hey, I'm Subaru owner. I've owned multiple. The first thing they ask is, have you done your maintenance? Is did you buy it new? Have you owned multiple? And if you can answer any of those 3 yes, it's pretty much an automatic yes.
That's great.
Oh, you're locked in, Tristan.
I got
Yeah.
3. I've bought
You got
them all
3.
new,
Yeah.
and I do the maintenance there so far. So I'll
you
keep
got-
that in mind.
What
You got the
year
trifecta,
Outback do
bro.
you have?
2020 Onyx XT.
Do you have any issues with your radio yet?
Yeah.
Battery die
Yeah.
yet?
Battery has not died yet. I have not gotten the
it
radio
will.
issues fixed,
It will.
but the head unit keeps rebooting recently, which is fun.
Yeah,
So,
cool. Bring it in. They'll fix it and it'll keep doing it.
Yeah, that's why I haven't bothered. Until I hear that it's actually fixed, I don't bother fixing things that are just going to break again.
They keep coming up with software updates and they get better and better and better, but they haven't had a fix for it. I mean,
This last one made it worse.
Yeah, it's a known thing. It's a known thing, and the problem is all these manufacturers don't make their audio equipment. So
they're running they're running Auto Linux, as we discovered one time, which is
As you discovered when it kernel panicked.
it's one of the only ones that does, and that's why probably.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean Subaru has 2 issues, and I don't even call them issues right now. Batteries, they don't have a battery discharge stop, battery discharge warning. So if you go to the airport and you leave it for a week, chances are pretty good the battery's going to be dead. Not a huge deal, but how hard is it to put in a discharge warning? Like every other manufacturer, when the battery starts discharging, just shut it off. Shut that module off. It's not that complicated. And then the radio issues, but radio issues aren't exclusive to Subaru. It's like Chrysler has a ton of them where I work now. And
actually, this is a good question for you, Brad. Speaking of unfixable or issues that manufacturers just won't fix.
I know what's coming.
Yeah. Speaking of, and also Milwaukee, where I work, and maybe you heard or know about this. There's just been an unbelievable rash of Hyundai Kia thefts in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
because what I think the reason is because the shock sensors are not sensitive enough. So if you break the back window and hop in the car
Hang on,
and
let me go
start
smash
it,
my wife's.
yeah, either with the fob or with the key, you can just take the car.
Yeah.
Instead of fixing the problem, I think that Hyundai and Kia, what they're doing is buying clubs and sending them to dealerships
Well,
and police departments.
and police departments.
well,
Why are they doing it that way?
I heard that the city of Milwaukee was doing that. I don't know. I mean, that could be completely
they're
wrong.
I was talking to a city of Milwaukee cop the other day. They're actually getting them sent to them by Hyundai and Kia now.
Really?
Yep.
So my wife has a 2020 Sorento, and the other day I went out and shook it, and the alarm went off. I don't know if that's normal or what. I was reading an article about it. That's the first I had heard about it. I kind of attribute it to like I thought, is it easy to steal? Is that why they're stealing them?
There is, because
Or
there's
is-
also no immobilizer on them.
Right.
Yeah,
The
they
immobilizer
are
key?
easy to steal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on the model, right? Because someone they almost got my car twice. They did get someone else's car that I work with, but I have the push button start. So the first
Right.
time they came, they didn't have the USB to start it,
Sure.
but they must have the second time, and they just got caught the second time. Like someone walked into the parking lot. But yeah, we saw them on video camera with the first car. They just walked up, popped the back window, climbed in, started the car, drove away. Not an alarm in sight.
Really?
Yeah, and that was what was that? What's the little Kia SUV called? The
Seltos?
Seltos.
Yeah, a little one. And that was new in like 19, right?
Yeah, that was a brand new car.
Brand new vehicle.
It's crazy because my wife has a 2020 Sorento and it's a key start, and I thought that had the passive interlock, the passive theft. Maybe it
I
doesn't.
thought so too. I mean, it's you would think it'd be part of it.
You would certainly think.
I guess it's just hard to tell anymore.
So, Brad, what would possess you to go out and just shake your wife's car? Like, I feel
Because of that.
to see if the thing goes.
Like,
off.
Because I saw that.
You saw the news? Okay.
Yeah,
His
honestly, like,
unquenchable thirst for knowledge, Nick.
right.
That sounds like it.
Because I have nothing better to do with my life.
He is but a man.
Two
Yeah,
kids
and
in a zoo in your house with all the pets
Right.
you have, but yeah,
Oh.
nothing else to do.
I don't have a pet. I have a third son and my dog, and then I have 2 cats. So, but yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, well, my first thought was when I saw that before I researched any of it is the Toyota Camry was the most stolen vehicle in the world because it was popular. It was just, like nobody, it blended in. If you stole a Corvette, somebody's going to notice, right? If you steal a Camry and you sell a Camry in Mexico, nobody's going to care. So my thought was, well, it's just like the everyday vehicle. Maybe it's just so mundane that nobody really looks into it. And then I started reading the stuff you're talking about. Like, is their anti-theft not that great? But I mean, I know they have passive anti-theft because the fobs need to be programmed even with a key start. So, do they have a way around that?
I don't know.
Maybe?
Well, it depends on the model, right? Because if you make the starter stick for the the push buttons,
Sure.
then nothing matters because it's literally just a direct boot.
Right. So here's what people don't understand. Everybody says, I need my key programmed, right? You don't program the key. You program the car to recognize the key.
Yeah.
So if they have a universal code that they can program the car to understand, there's nothing you can do about that.
I know the USB stick is literally just a Tristan is essentially just a bootloader, right? You program the stick to start the car OS essentially, and you literally push start on the screen, on the actual screen to start it. Like it just directly loads in.
So the
Yeah, it
manufacturers need to come up
bypasses
with
the
that.
button. Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem is you can now do it through the longer term on USB port, right? It's not just a battery port anymore. It's also a data port. I mean, honestly, I don't really see a way around it. It's exactly the hardware access security problem, Tristan. If you can get to the server,
physical access trumps everything.
yeah. If you can get to the server, there's nothing you can do.
So
exactly
that
like
being
this.
said,
Yeah.
wouldn't a key, like a key cylinder with a digital or a electronic push button, be better? So you had two points of
You need
access.
to insert the key physically and then push the button.
Multi-factor authentication for cars.
That's
Sure.
pretty
Something
cool,
you
actually.
have, something you know, something you are.
Did
And
I
then
just
when-
say something that I made sense that I didn't know what it was?
Yeah, no, it
You
does
kinda
actually
did,
make
yeah.
a certain amount of sense. So
That was well done.
Yeah, it is actually, there are analogs to this in computer technology too, with which both Tristan and I do. There are the
I had a
rare
hard time
servers.
logging on. I'm not
Right,
good
yeah.
with computers. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, there are servers, high security servers, where you need a physical access token, a key or a swipe or something else,
Sure.
and a digital password, but it would just never fly in a car.
Why not
I
have
could never imagine someone forgetting their car password.
not
Ugh.
even a password, but why not have a physical key and then a separate fob, like a remote start fob that has a radio frequency that needs, so you need both of them.
Yeah, because I think people would see it as going backwards. Honestly, that's what I think the reason would be. People would think that it's like, oh, why do we need to do both of these things? If you had to turn the old key,
Right.
just to like an on position in order to do that, and then it would use the same as a current keyless start, the authentication in the fob or in the key to start the car.
But you could keep it all on one ring. So you've got the RFID
100%
fob
you
and then the physical key, turn, push button, away you go.
But you need
Made it like
double verification.
Two keys like missile submarines. The driver and the passenger has to turn it at the same time. And then you can
The passenger's got it down on the seat by the little, like,
Yeah.
you adjust the seat
sob,
back.
where the
and then
sob
also-
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember that commercial? What's the launch code? IHATEMYJOB.
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. What is that for? Which
I
one
don't know,
is
some
that?
stupid commercial.
Nice.
I'm not sure why I remember that.
That
No,
was
I do think
actually,
yeah.
you said that made a lot of sense, Brad.
Yeah,
we're
that is
solving some problems here.
a
We're very
great idea.
forward thinking for the second time on this podcast.
So, cars use like an RFID
Yes.
module for the keys. That's got to be pretty easy to hack. I always wondered that. Like, I'm stupid with computers, but it's got to be. It's just radio frequencies. It can't be that hard. It's a freaking garage door opener.
It's not that hard, but it's easier to do it a different way. It's literally easier to get a programmed USB stick. It's probably just like, an 8 gig, 16
Right.
gig USB stick that directly boots the car, bypassing the in-car tech completely.
Sure. So now that we've figured out how they're stealing them, why are they stealing Hyundais and Kias?
Because it's easy.
Yeah,
Because it's easy. That's why.
Because for whatever reason,
Aren't all
either
manufacturers the same?
no, and that's what I don't necessarily know the answer to. I don't know the strict reason. My assumption was because what the cops were telling us when they came to do the police report on the car that was stolen out of our lot was that all they're doing is popping specifically the back windows, crawling in and starting the cars.
So
And it's not setting off car alarms.
all cars use pretty much the same system for keys. I think it probably has something to do with the back window, to be honest with you. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but all cars use what they like. Ford calls it a PAT system, passive anti-theft system. They all use some sort of passive radio frequency system. So it's probably not that. I think it's probably has more to do, like you were saying, with the back window or the motion sensor. It's probably theirs probably is they found a loophole.
Yeah, it's just that simple. And it doesn't seem like Hyundai or Kia is going to bother fixing it, really.
Whatever. Nobody's going to steal mine. It's not worth stealing. I'm kidding.
No, yeah, they came after mine twice. I hate using the club. It's annoying. It feels like a pointless half measure.
Oh, and I meant mine, not my wife's Sorento, my Mercury Sable. Nobody's going to steal that.
There you go.
Hmm.
That's
Probably
the key.
not.
You got to get past the window of
Right.
desirability.
Right, yeah. No, I got past the window of payments. That's where I'm at. My grandma's like, "Hey, I'm gonna junk my car." I'm like, "You're gonna do what?" She's like, "Well, I can't drive anymore." I'm like, "Oh, I can drive. I'll take that, Grandma." She's like,
That's
"Well,"
awesome.
she's like, "Well, I was gonna get $500 to put to what is that car thing? Christ, I'm drawing blank. Bart Starr and his wife's thing.
Cars,
Rawhide Boys
Rawhide
Ranch.
Ranch,
I'm like,
whatever.
"I'll
It's
tell you
like
what,
Cars
Grandma," I'm
for
like, "I'll
kids,
give
but
you-"
it wasn't that.
Yeah, it was Rawhide. You're right. I'm like, "I'll give you $500. Put it to Rawhide, and I'll take the car, and we'll call it even." So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It had
So-
46,000 miles on it. It's a 1996 when I got it.
Whoa.
It's now
Oh,
got
it's just getting warmed up, Brad.
now got 64,000 on it. Yeah.
Still,
Super low mileage.
Right. Well,
you can put it on Bring a Trailer and get
Hey.
35 grand for
Oh,
it.
this could be a whole other. This could be a
He
whole
knows
other
what he's
show.
got.
Is that a good? Yeah, I know what I got. Don't chew me down. Is this a good thing for a car to sit that much, or is it a bad thing? I mean, I can go both ways on it.
I don't know. I
Engine
guess
trans, probably
Yeah.
a good thing, but bearings and everything, anything that moves, I don't really know.
Yeah, it might seize, especially in our weather.
Well,
You know, rain, water and salt. You know,
I was
Water
just
and
gonna
salt.
say you should call that
Instantly
guy.
will ruin
Ask
the
him.
car.
yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
drove my Hellcat, some bitches. So
Oh,
That's
no.
I
awesome.
mean, I put loaded struts, all four calipers, brake hoses, pads, rotors. I changed the fuel filter. No, obviously all the spark plugs, whatever. All in Rock Auto for $500.
So you got like the purchase and the maintenance, initial maintenance was $1,000 all in.
right,
Mhm.
You're golden.
right. I told Ashley's like, "Don't you want a new car?" My wife. I'm like, "Why? What does that do that this one doesn't?" I put a stereo in it.
Oh,
with
what
a
does that do? Oh, come
backup
on.
camera and the whole infotainment system. So
Well,
maybe
new
I
car
have
gets stolen.
$1,500 in it. Right. I'm like, nobody's stealing my shit box. I'm still getting to work.
I mean, it's a great commuter car.
Well, it doesn't owe me anything, and I'd much rather spend that money on family vacations and stuff. Like
Oh, that's
sure.
I can make this work. I can fix enough stuff that it makes it plausible for me. So, your average guy, yeah, he's not going to want that. He's going to want something reliable, something dependable, something that has a warranty. Doesn't matter to me.
Not me.
Nope, I'm not that guy. I'm like the no payment guy. I could be the worst
That's
car
right.
salesman ever.
Well, it's a good thing you work in service then,
Right.
not on the sales floor.
So,
So we've got with pre-technical difficulties and now post, we've had you for about 90 minutes. So we appreciate the time, and I want to let you out here. But before we do, are you ready for it, boys? Shift gears here.
Oh, okay.
Real quick. I am not a cook or food guy. Tristan dabbles in it. He's pretty.
I am.
Andrew, of the three of us, Andrew is a foodie. So Brad, I want you to specifically tell Andrew about your homemade brick pizza oven that you put in.
Oh,
Oh.
the fancy.
So I'll send you a link. It's one day I was sitting. It was like Saturday night. I was laying in bed looking YouTube, and it was Chef Steps. It's just bricks and pavers. You make a wood-fired pizza oven. So it's fire. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just regular fire bricks or regular bricks, I should say. And there's a fire on the bottom, and then it's open in the back, and there's a 16. I think it's like 16 by 18 paver, and that's the cooking deck, and there's two more brick height, and then another one of those pavers for the top. You start a fire on the bottom, and the fire comes up the back and cooks the pizza. So you get the smoke and all that, and then you get the high heat on the bottom. It's phenomenal. I'm not
How
good at
long-
much, but I
how-
can
how-
cook.
Great.
How long does it take to cook the pizza, Brad?
2 minutes tops.
Yeah.
650 is perfect. 600 will work. 700 is a little high, but 650 is money.
$6.50 for 2 minutes. You have amazing pizza. We drove. Claire and I drove up there for an afternoon, obviously to hang out with the boys and hang out with the family, but more so because Brad was making homemade
Mostly
pizza.
for the pizza.
Yeah.
I understand.
So
Oh.
we drove 2 hours to sit 2 minutes and wait for pizza, and it was incredible.
Worth it,
was
though.
so worth it.
Yeah, so
That
I
sounds
make
awesome.
my own dough and sauce and everything. One thing I'll tell you, 00 pizza flour is money. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Only comes from Italy. Yeah, that's money. High gluten, very fine grind. That's where it's at.
But it's got to be. It's got to be though. That's the whole thing with
That's how
pizza
you
dough.
get
right?
the-
It's got to be. It's
That's
got
how
to
you
be
get the chewy, stretchy goodness.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Gluten formation. Gluten's king.
Yeah,
Gluten is
it
king.
definitely is. I'm
I
starving.
want to get that on a
so
t-shirt.
That
All right.
that all sounds incredible to me.
One last thing. The best thing, funniest license plate I've ever seen. You guys got any of them?
I don't have any really funny ones. I saw one on the way home today. I'm trying to remember the exact wording of it. P before we leave was
That's hilarious.
but you had to read it out to get it. So it was letter P, B for WILV.
Love it.
Um,
So I love
Brett,
looking at license plates and trying to figure them out. That's my thing.
Brett, I think I told you about the one, the blonde lady in the BMW that drove past me on the highway, and the license plate said was his.
That's
That's savage, but it's pretty funny.
I feel bad for that guy, but I love her for it.
That's
I told you guys, Nick and Andrew, about the McLaren I saw on the way down to Georgia that just had the Tennessee license plate. Ridiculous.
Classic. You can't do
Straightforward.
That's hilarious.
And you look at it and go, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes, correct.
So the best one I've ever seen was a mid 2010s Ford van. The panel van, no windows, like an E350 or whatever. No windows with the cage, the safety cage in the back behind the driver's seat. The license plate was Candy.
Ooh.
Ooh. I'm like, that guy's either really brave or really funny.
Maybe both.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably both.
I don't know. Yeah, we call the cops. No, I'm just kidding.
We called the cops immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
No, it was like a plumbing van, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, that's
not like it doesn't have like a logo on it, did it? Like it wasn't like a company van.
It was just plain white. It must have been like an owner operator type thing. It was just plain white, nothing in it. But I mean, obviously it was a work van, but that was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, had it had like, handcuffs in the back, I would call the cops.
Yeah, no, then you got a big problem.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it was definitely a work van.
So I think that's a great spot to end. We gotta get you out of here, man, and get you back to your dog and cat and boys and real life here.
The dog is bored and the kids need to go to bed. So.
Hey, there he is.
So, guys, I don't think we don't need to go around the horn and do thank yous. The only thank you here is thanking Brad for being with us and dropping all of the knowledge and funny, hilarious stories on us. Should have done this way earlier. We've been at this for 4 years. I can't believe we haven't had you on sooner. So.
Well, that's probably a third of the stories I have. So if you ever need content,
can't wait to get him back again already. That was awesome, man. Thank you. That was great.
You're welcome. Thanks. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad. Thank you, listeners, for your continued support. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, either Check Engine Podcast or Twitter and Insta is at Check Engine Pod. We love hearing from you. We love recording this for you. We cannot wait to do it again. Until then, take care.